Hey everyone, it's Austin Solomon, the Solomon Group at Coldwell Banker. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of The Real Wausau Real Estate Show. Joe Ziolkowski back in the studio. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, right on. So, as a precursor to this episode, if you haven't listened to Joe's intro episode, which should have aired probably a week or so ago, go ahead and listen to that because we dive a lot into Joe's background, how he got started into real estate, how we got, how you did some flips, how you got started in investment real estate. Now you're an agent with our team, and today we're going to talk about specifically just a few tips about how to invest in real estate that you've learned. For context, excuse me. For context, Joe currently has 26 units.
So 22 units and under contract for 24 more, a 24 unit that we'll be closing on in July.
That's awesome. So he's going to be 40 plus units here very soon. And so a lot to learn from Joe. Joe, let's dive in. Tell us a little bit about, obviously we talked again about how you got started into investment real estate, but give us some of the biggest tips that you've learned over the years. If you were to start over again, what would you do different?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think starting over again, I think one of the biggest things I would do is to make sure I have, all the right people in place. And what that entails is having I guess for me it's a little bit different, but one, having a good realtor from the start, someone you can trust and who knows the market well that you're in. Two is having a good contractor that you know, and that's going to be a really big thing if you're going to be doing more flipping and rehabbing your properties. That makes a huge difference, and that's one of the reasons we sold one of our properties just because it was very difficult to find. That one needed a roof. It was very difficult to find a roofer, in a short amount of time when it needed to be done immediately, and just the price on things. It can be pretty difficult not having a good contractor in your back pocket.
Right.
And I don't know. I guess some other lessons or big things that I would do starting out. Probably getting started a little sooner. I did start, pretty quickly, but we read books and listened to podcasts for, 3-4 years before we really did anything. And I know I did like one little flip in that time frame, but it was just kind of a one-off, and I didn't really have focus on it overall. But yeah, I would just say just getting started sooner, because there's only so much you can learn by reading and listening to podcasts. You really can learn a lot more by actually doing it.
I like that, yeah. So the 3 lessons there were, to recap: 1, have a good real estate agent; 2, kind of have a good team, good contractor.
Yeah, good team in place.
And then 3 is spend some time studying, but also learn by doing.
Right, yep.
I like it, yeah. Let's unpack the realtor piece. What do you expect? Because now, obviously, Joe is a realtor. Well, he's been actually an agent on and off since 2017.
Yep.
What do you expect the realtor to do for you? If you're straight up just investing, now Joe is obviously buying stuff on his own, right?
Yep.
But a lot of times, what do you expect? What do you expect if you, let's take yourself off the equation, right? What do you expect an agent to do for you? Like if you were to go buy in Minneapolis again, what would you expect that agent to do?
Yeah. So, the biggest thing is probably trying to determine, the value for properties. So making sure you're getting a good deal on what you're buying. And obviously helping with contracts and things like that, negotiating. You're going to need a realtor who can negotiate good on your behalf.
Yep.
But yeah, I would say the biggest thing is probably price and making sure you're not overpaying for the property that you're looking to buy.
Great. So someone that has a good understanding of the market.
Yep.
What do you think about like a real estate agent? You kind of need them to be very direct with you too, though.
Yeah, you don't want them dancing around the subject.
Exactly,
if you can get someone that tells you
Knows what
for
they're
what it
doing.
is. Yeah, knows what doing
Yeah.
knows what they're doing, and tells you for what it is.
Yep.
That's definitely what you want
Right.
as a realtor when you're investing.
When you're investing, yeah, exactly. It's a little bit different from buying like a single family home that you're going to live in.
Right.
So as an agent, that when you're helping someone with a single family home that they're going to live in, there's much more involved. It's more emotional,
Yep.
right? It's not dollars and cents.
Right.
Sometimes as an agent, when working with an investor, you just have to tell the buyer, hey, no, this doesn't make sense investment wise, right?
Right.
You may like the property, right? You like that it's an all brick duplex, right? It's quaint, but it doesn't make sense financially. Or
Right.
you have to tell someone, hey, I know you don't like this property for whatever reason, but it makes sense financially, like you should buy it.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely helpful too if the realtor that you are using has investments themselves in that area.
Yeah.
They have experience firsthand of what cash flow numbers look like, other expenses for utilities and whatnot.
Yeah.
That definitely helps as well.
So what's super interesting is tell the audience, I don't know if you have experienced this, but when you're helping someone buy a property, right? Doesn't it always help when you're buying properties too? Like you're in the state and you kind of understand like how people feel about it. Like you ever get that? So when I bought my first property, for example, I'll never forget it, right? It was a foreclosure in 2017. I wrote an offer on it. It took 6 months to close. I bought it for $35,000 and I was super nervous about it throughout
Yeah.
the whole process. Now, the thing was $35,000, like it was a steal, and it's only like quadrupled in value probably over the last, couple of years, right? But with a lot of work, by the way, like I didn't just quadruple the, the
Right.
value. It's just
Yep.
a lot of work. But anyway, point being, I remember how nervous I was about buying it. I was like, man, like there could be water in the basement. It's an old stone foundation. Like, what if this happens? What if that happens?
Right.
You kind of get a sense of that, and it's good to put yourself in that perspective because, and to do that often, because then you put yourself in the buyer's shoes and you can better serve the customer when they're buying a house.
Right, and especially like the more volume that you do, of personal, some things that you begin to realize like that you thought were big problems really aren't.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
And that takes being a first time investor, home buyer, it's difficult to understand. But if you have an agent that can help explain those things to you, it helps a lot.
Exactly. Yep. And that's 100%. You learn as you go, and then when you're looking at a house, you're like, okay, I've dealt with this, right?
Yep.
Like, hey, a property has fuel oil, right? What do? Well, you've learned through the years that, WPS will run the first 50 feet free. I'll probably be able to do that. So I'm just looking at a free furnace. Does it make sense to do it? And you can make that call. And then you just kind of build a bank. Like, what it costs to have an electrical service upgraded, right?
Right.
You know what a 60 amp panel versus a 100 amp versus 200 amp looks like, and you know if it's a problem or not, if the foundation is decent or not. You just learn those things.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us about the contractor piece. It's super interesting because on one hand, I know exactly what you mean, right? So for a lot of people that want to get into real estate investing, I think that they put too much emphasis on the realtor, though, because they believe that, hey, realtor, like, hey, Austin, if you can find us a property, right, for cheap, then let us know because we'll buy it.
Right.
Obviously, that's difficult because, there's not that many properties that are cheap right now in decent deals,
Right.
And most people that, if they don't have a plan, they're looking for a steal of a deal, right? And on the agent front, like we're happy to help people out on the investing front, but if they don't have a plan and they're just looking for a steal, you and I both know realistically they're probably not going to be buying a lot of properties, and they're going to be it's going to take a lot of time for them to buy one. As an agent, working with that client is going to be difficult and not going to lead to a lot of a big commission, right, straight up. But if someone has a plan, right, then they're going to be in a much better position, and maybe if they have the right mindset going into it, then obviously that makes it a little easier on the agent front to help them out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, I'm talking too much, Joe. Tell us. Okay, so tell us. So, what else have you learned as far as like? Here's a question for you: would you rather have money, or would you rather have the knowledge of investing in real estate? Or is there a balance?
Well, there's definitely a balance. I honestly, I want both, right?
Yeah.
But that's where partnerships can come in. And you know, we have my partner Eric and Jared and I. You know, we have a good understanding now of, especially the central Wisconsin market, and how cash flow works and our numbers and things like that. So having that experience certainly helps. And if you have an investor that is just looking for a return on their money, something like that, you know, those two can partner, and essentially it's a win-win situation, right? We have the knowledge of the market. They want a return on their money. You can make it a win-win for both parties.
Yep. No, exactly. Yeah, you want to partner with people where you kind of offset each other.
Exactly. Yep.
If someone is in the audience right now and they have like $10,000 and they're thinking about investing in real estate, what would be your advice?
Well, if you don't own a home, I would definitely go for house hacking.
Okay.
Now try to do an FHA loan like I did starting out. You know, I didn't have a lot of money.
How much down?
$282 down.
Oh, well, yeah, that's how much you put down, but how much would the normal person put down?
3.5% for an FHA loan.
Okay, 3.5%. Yep.
Yep. So yeah, you can get a low down payment, and there's even low down payment conventional loans as well. And sometimes those are a little bit better in a competitive market. So it's just something you'd have to talk to your lender about. But yeah, if I had $10,000 just starting out, I would definitely look for a duplex, triplex. You know, something that qualify for you know, conventional financing, and yeah, you live in one unit and rent out the others, and it's a great learning experience. You learn how to kind of manage tenants that way. If there's any work that needs to be done, you can do that yourself while you're living in the property.
Yep.
And yeah, you can do it for, you know, not a lot of money to get started, and the learning experience is the more important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So give us an example. So if someone, again, so 10 grand, right? They'd probably be able to buy a duplex for what, like 100? They could probably swing that.
Yeah, definitely.
That's probably what they're looking at. So they buy a duplex for 100. Give us like some rough examples of like what that looks like monetary wise for them in the Wausau market.
Sure. So right, if you're looking at a duplex around 100,000, which is certainly, you know, you can certainly find something like that in the Wausau area.
Yep.
And you're going with a 3.5% down loan. You know, so you're gonna have to put down $3,500. You're gonna have you know, your closing costs of, you know, 3-4% conservatively.
Yep.
And yeah, so I mean, that kind of puts you right at, and you have a little bit of reserves, but you know, 1,000 or 2. But that kind of, if with $10,000 you'd be able to get into a property like that, and you might have to do some of the work yourself when, you know, say you want to, you know, replace the flooring or paint, things like that, cosmetically. That stuff can kind of be expensive to hire out, but if you've got time on your hands and you're living there, it's a great way to improve the value of their property for little money.
Yep. Okay. So let's go a step deeper. So we said $3,500 for a down payment, probably $3,000 to $4,000 in closing costs. And your monthly, what would your monthly payment look like? I'm just thinking in my head, it's probably what, $400 a month for principal and interest with current interest rates.
Yeah, I'd say about that.
And then probably taxes in Wausau, $100,000 property, probably $2,000. That's what, you know.
Yeah, so you're probably looking at
$150 a month. No, that's $1,800. So anyway, we'll just say $1,800, 150 plus 400, and then say another 100 for miscellaneous, you know, insurance.
Yeah, so like one of our duplexes that we bought for $80,000 last year, our PITI payment is $532.
Nice.
So just to give you a rough idea, so at $100,000, you'd probably be around like maybe $600 or so.
Okay, so the expense, so what Joe pays each month on that duplex is $600 a month. Now, that's his expense, but some of that he's getting back because he's paying it towards the bank and still, you know, paying it towards the principal.
Yep.
So you're gaining equity each payment. Do you know roughly how much? You track that or not really?
We don't track that too much. We get like, a statement at the end of the year, how much we pay down and what it's at. But yeah, we don't track that on the daily or monthly.
It's probably like $50 or $100 of your payment is going towards principal.
Yeah,
it takes a while.
Most of it's towards interest right now.
Yeah. Okay. So then, in our example, right, $100,000 property. Again, we've kind of ran the numbers. What could someone expect to rent out that duplex for, like each unit?
Yeah. So if you're looking at a 1-bedroom, 1-bath in each unit, you're going to be probably at, depending on how nice it is, we're getting $550 to $595 right now. For 1-bedrooms. For 2 beds, we're getting $650 all day long.
Nice.
And if they are a little bit nicer, if it comes with the garage, excuse me, comes with the garage space, you can get a little more, probably $675 for a 2-bedroom. 3-bedroom, around $750 or so.
Okay.
And this is for like the C, B class type property.
Yep.
And if you're looking, like nicer, closer towards A class, your rents are obviously going to be a lot higher.
Yep.
Newer buildings, your rents are going to be higher. But for a lot of those type properties, that's for like the older ones, built in the early 1900s, things like that.
Yep.
What Wassa, has a lot of those. That's kind of what you're going to be looking at for rents.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. No, that's fantastic. So someone could get in there, live in one side, probably rent out the other for between $500 and $600, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's your house hack. You're kind of living.
Exactly.
First, you're getting your living taken care of, right?
Yep.
You're not paying anyone else for rent.
Right.
And someone else is actually paying your payment for you, and you're learning experience. You're getting experience because you're learning because you bought your first property. Then what happens? Then when would you make the next jump to the property, right?
To the next property?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it depends. You can keep living in that one and then start saving up for your next purchase. Partner with someone like we did.
Yep.
So it really depends on the situation. And if you want to do another house hack, if you do a government loan like an FHA loan, you have to live in the property for 2 years. I believe there's some certain rules behind it, but
right.
there's it really depends on the situation and how fast you want to grow.
Sure. Yep. So if you get into that property, right, and it went well, you're living in that duplex, now it's time you want to make the next move, right? Obviously you need money in order to invest.
Right.
So you either have to earn that money or get a partner or find some funds.
Yep.
Absolutely. Okay. Fantastic. Joe, for our listeners, explain the difference. Explain what kind of properties you're looking for. I know you mentioned B, C class properties, right? Mm-hmm. Explain what that means for the audience.
Yeah. So what we're looking for, our goal, I guess, between per unit on a property that we're looking to buy is we're looking to get anywhere between $100 and $150 per door in cash flow after all expenses. And I guess what that means is, so say your rent is $100 or $1,000, we factor in 8% for property management, 7% for vacancy, 5% for CapEx, and 5% for maintenance. So we take that right off the top. So I think that's 25%.
Okay.
So now you're left with $750. And then you subtract your utilities if you have any of them. Typically, we try to look for properties that have separate utilities, and WASA taxes include garbage. So sometimes you're really only paying water on these properties. So you subtract your utility, and then what you're left with, that's kind of your net operating income.
Okay.
And then you can subtract your debt deduction, your debt payment if you did get a loan or a mortgage for the property.
Okay, and then you're left with your cash flow.
And then you're left with your cash flow.
Okay.
And we're looking at between $100 and $150 a door or per unit.
Okay.
Is our metric.
Let me see if I was listening here. So gross rents, less 7% vacancies.
Yep.
Less 5% capital expenditures. Right? Like that would be your roof, furnace, etc.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear what you said.
Keep going.
Sorry about that. My watch went off.
No worries. It's all good.
So that includes your roof. You're going to need to save up for those things over time. So you have to put some money aside for your furnace, roof. Those things are eventually going to go out. So that's what the CapEx is for.
Yep.
And then the maintenance is for things like on the year between rent turnovers, you're going to have to repaint, clean the carpets, things like that. Or
Oh, did
fix-
you have a maintenance calculation too?
Yeah.
How
Yep,
much
a
is it?
5%.
Oh, it's 5 cap and 5 maintenance.
Yep, 5 cap, 5 maintenance.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
And then the last one would be the management fees.
Management fees. Yep.
8%.
Yeah, 8%. I think we're at 7% now. Just because with our property manager, we actually just switched over.
Sure.
It's the amount of units you have. The more you have, the less. They have kind of a tiered system.
Yeah.
I believe we're at 8 or 7%.
Sure.
I can't quite remember, but
Yep. Okay. That sounds good. So 25% off the top is going to be kind of factored into like future maintenance expenses,
right.
vacancies, right?
And these are a lot of the expenses that sometimes people miss when they're first starting out, right?
Sure.
They might think it's just, your PITI and utilities.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not really the way it is, because you are going to have these expenses and you're not always going to want to manage your property.
Right.
And you're going to have vacancy. So you have to really factor those things in.
Yep. Great. And then from there, right, you take your 25% off the top, and then you're looking at, gross rents less expenses, and then that's your net operating income. And then from there, you still have to make if you pay cash, right?
You pay cash,
You
yep.
pay cash, that's your income, that's your cash flow.
Yep.
But if you have a mortgage, then you take out your mortgage, and then that would be your cash flow.
Exactly, yep.
That's good. Fantastic. What other things would you say would be okay? So for a more seasoned investor now, let's talk about some high-level tips. What do you think for a more seasoned investor? Like, what's the play right now in the market? Like, market's hot, right?
Yep.
Do you sell? Do you buy? Like someone that has 100 units right now, what's the play?
It really depends on your strategy, right? So, I mean, us, we're anything we buy, we typically don't want to sell for basically the rest of our lives.
That's awesome. Yep.
That's kind of our plan. We did sell that one because it was more strategic to sell it and save on the roof expense and plow that back into another property. But I mean, I don't know. I think since the market is very competitive on market, I mean, our strategy right now is to try and find sellers directly, and negotiate with sellers directly and trying to find off-market deals, which it's difficult to do.
Yep.
But it can be done. And
that's a good point. Just as a side note for people listening to this episode, when a lot of people ask us, like, because I invest in real estate, Joe does too. Like 90% of the time, the stuff that we buy is off the market, or it's not. We're never competing against our clients.
No,
I want people to know that, like, we don't ever compete with our clients. If something's listed, we can't. Well, we can't.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're trying to find off-market deals, negotiate with sellers directly, and now for us, we're starting to reevaluate our strategy. Like, do we still want to go after kind of small duplex, triplex, things like that? Once we get this 24 unit locked down, we'll be at 46 units. So starting to scale things up a little bit more, and so we kind of have to reevaluate what we want to do moving forward. And I think our strategy is going to be going after still, I guess, smaller properties that do cash flow very well, but are a little bit newer, don't require as much CapEx. So maybe a little bit, B plus, not quite A class properties, but a little bit nicer, newer properties. When starting out, we were just trying to, pretty much buy anything that cash flowed well.
Yep.
I guess a little bit nicer properties, bigger type deals we're going to be going after moving forward. But
I think that as an investor, the biggest thing you can do is create like a basic plan. You don't have to know all the specifics, but for example, if someone says, "Hey, Austin, I'm looking to invest," and I ask them some basic questions like, "Well, how much are you looking to cash flow?" Or what are you looking for, like, a return on your investment, right?
Right.
And if they're like, "Well, I don't know," it's very hard as an agent to know what they're looking for.
Right.
Because there's no way you're going to buy an A or B class property and cash flow more than 10%. Like, you're not going to cash flow more than 10% on an A or B class property.
Right.
But I can get you to cash flow 30% on a D.
Right.
And what I mean by that is that if you're looking for numbers that scream, right? You need to go to the ghetto and buy a duplex that no one really wants, right?
Right.
And I'm not just saying like there's really not a ghetto in Wausau, but like Minneapolis or Milwaukee, right?
Exactly.
If you want numbers that really scream, go to the neighborhoods no one wants to go to, buy a property for very, very cheap, right? And then obviously there's going to be a lot of CapEx. There's going to be a lot of fixes that
Right.
need to be done.
Yep.
And you're going to have a lot of work. You're going to have to deal with tenants that maybe don't make their payments on time, et
Right.
cetera. Like that's just, the nature
Yeah.
of it.
Yep.
It's a D-class property, so you're going to have more work. But the numbers will scream.
Yeah, right.
Explain why would someone want to do that? Why would someone not want to do it? Why do people go for A plus or B properties too?
Right. Well, I mean, I think starting out, right, and say you don't have a lot of money, but you've got time on your hands. That's where it's more effective to go after that C, D class property.
Yep.
It's going to cash flow well. You can put sweat equity into it.
Yep.
You have time to manage the tenants. You have time to manage the CapEx and things like that. And as long as you factor your numbers in, you might have to run a 7, 8, 10% CapEx expense when you're running your numbers initially.
Yep.
On those properties. But yeah, I mean, starting out, that's what that's all you can go for.
Right.
And as you become more sophisticated and a knowledgeable investor, you've got more money, less time on your hands.
Yep.
Typically, you might want to move towards those a little bit nicer properties, require less CapEx, better tenant class, like you were saying.
Yep.
And so
Because that's more scalable.
yeah, it's more scalable,
Yep.
right? Because I mean, time's the biggest thing.
Time's the biggest thing.
And that's the only thing you can't make more of.
Exactly. Yep. And that's where, as an investor, you have to be realistic and self-aware, right? So, like, I know, for me personally, I'm not going to be one that, well, I'm kind of transitioning to a little bit, but I'm not one that wants to spend a ton of time on, managing stuff.
Right.
Or, coordinating a ton of work and different things like that, right?
Right.
But it's kind of a balance too. Like you kind of want to balance. I like your approach. You're going for the middle of the road. Like nothing that's too,
Right.
on one end or the other. Like you don't want to hire a builder to build you a duplex, right? Because it might take 10 years to be able to recoup anything, right? But you also don't want to buy maybe the cheapest, most maintenance duplexes because they're properties, because those could also take the most time,
Right.
right?
Exactly. And like
balance.
just driving around, so another thing we do is drive for dollars and try to pick out properties specifically that we
Yeah.
want to target.
Yeah.
And that's kind of C, lower B class type property. And I was just talking, I was doing it with my buddy the other day, but and you see the really nice, 100+ unit complexes and things like that. It's like one day I do want to get there,
Yep.
right? Just right now we don't quite have the means for it, and I think as we scale up, our unit count, become more knowledgeable and better connections, things like that. Eventually we do want to get there, and I think that's what a lot of people I think strive for.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks for joining us again, Joe, on this week's episode of The Real. Any last parting words for the audience?
I mean, my biggest tip is just to get started. That's the biggest thing you can do, and yeah.
Awesome. Well, if you guys want to get started, we'll include Joe's contact information. He's a valuable asset for those that are looking to get into the space. He can definitely help you with buying or selling multifamily property, right? As he's very knowledgeable in that area. So thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of the show.